Thank you for joining me today for a little walk in the lovely Hampshire countryside. I was talking to somebody in the town the other day and I said, "Do you often go into the country?" And he said, "Oh, never." He says, "No, there's nothing there, only fields and a load of cow shit." So he might be right, but I'm sure there's lots of other things as well. So I thought we'd go for a little walk and just see what we can find. The hand of man is in everything, really. When you think about the countryside, we might think it's all natural, but actually there's a lot that man's done over the years, from farming, hedgerows, paths and roads, and all the infrastructure as well that we don't often notice. So I thought it'd be a good idea to concentrate on that today. So probably won't see too many birds or little animals, that type of thing. But we'll carry on up this very slight hill and just see what we come across, really. We're on our right of way footpath. It's private land, but we're perfectly entitled to walk along it as long as we're careful. Keep to the path, don't damage our crops. I've got a friend in America and he's very surprised that we can just walk along so many of these footpaths. If you do that in America, you'll either get arrested or probably shot, who knows. But it's a wonderful thing and we should really make more use of it. I've had to do this as a voiceover because there's so much wind noise. Right, look at this marker. It indicates an underground pipeline that carries aviation kerosene from Fawley Oil Refinery near Southampton to a distribution terminal near West London, and from there to Heathrow, Gatwick and other airports. These pipelines operate at a high pressure, around £1,000 per square inch, and they save over 100 road tanker movements every day. But without these markers, no one would even know the pipeline is here. We probably don't look up as much as we ought to. For instance, here, above us, is an 11,000 volt or 11 kV supply system. These are dotted all over the countryside, providing voltage to transformers which take the voltage down to supply houses, cottages and small farms. Above us here is an isolator to allow the distribution company to isolate certain sections when maintenance is required. This transformer reduces the 11,000 volts to 3 phases of 230 volts and a neutral to feed properties. Some of them, like this one, has a monitor that automatically reports faults such as outages, low voltages and high current draw, etc. In this hedge we can see a pole with a large bright orange top. It marks an underground gas pipeline that supplies a nearby town. The marker allows it to be easily seen by a regular helicopter survey which looks out for any construction or digging on the ground that may impact the safety of the pipeline. I wonder if anyone takes any notice of it as they pass by. Well, I find it interesting. Above us here is a larger power line. This one is a twin 3-phase 33,000 volt line that feeds a small town nearby, hence the 6 wires. If you ever think of flying a kite or a drone, stay well clear of any overhead lines. They are perfectly safe if you stay well away. There's a very lonely Royal Mail postbox, but I guess it's very handy for those few little houses that are nearby. Well, that was a steady walk up the hill. Luckily it's not too steep. Now it's well worth it at the top here. Get a beautiful view over the countryside. Right, at the top of this hill is a concrete structure known as a Trig Pillar, or triangulation pillar. They were used by the Ordnance Survey in the past to make accurate map making possible by providing a solid base for a theodolite. On the side is a flush bracket used to define its height above sea level. This one is 230 feet or 70.1 metres. Sea level varies due to tides, of course, so for consistency all heights are measured from the mean sea level at New Lynn in Cornwall. New Lynn is over 200 miles in a straight line from here, so I think that's pretty interesting. Right, forget the padlock, that's obviously something someone's just put on there, but you can see the actual spider that they attach the theodolite to. Right, a steady little walk back down now along some lovely footpaths over a stile. It's always nice to see the bluebells out this time of year. We'll head down towards somewhere a little bit more dark and mysterious. This is a sunken lane, or Holloway, which is where we get the name from. It's been worn down like this by thousands of years of human traffic, horses and carts. It's obviously not used much today, so where did it go? Why didn't it become a well-used tarmac road? Well, let's see. The track passes over here, which used to be a railway level crossing, complete with a platform and a crossing keeper's house. It's completely returned to nature now, just a couple of rail posts left that once held crossing warning notices. The track only passed by here by coincidence. It is thousands of years older than the railway. I have another video describing it in more detail, so have a look at it later. I will put up some information in the description area below. It's called Goodbye Durley Holt. Definitely an interesting piece of history. And this is where the track leads, a watermill. This one was built in the 17th century, but there have been mills on this site for far longer. One was referenced in the Domesday Book of 1083, and it is likely a mill existed here for far longer than that, which explains why the Holloway is so worn down. It's been many years since it provided flour, and as industrialisation vastly increased production and made the process cheaper. All along this river were many other mills producing flour, animal feed and paper, etc. Before the industrial age, these were among the most important places due to the most basic needs of people at that time. It's difficult to understand now how bread changed civilization as part of the three basic needs: shelter, water and food. We've already seen trees to provide timber for shelter, mills to provide food and water from the river, although most drank beer as it was safer. More on that later in the video, so watch to the end. These things also explain how many surnames came about. For instance, perhaps John Farmer to grow the grain, William Carter to take it to the mill, John Carpenter to make the cart, James Wright to make the cartwheels, Henry Smith to shoe the horse, Peter Miller or Frank White to turn the grain into flour, Simon Baker to make the bread, and perhaps a distant relative of Henry Ford lived next to the river, and so on. Surely that's interesting. As we leave the mill behind us, we come across this oak tree, which is a favourite of mine. You will have seen it before in my opening sequences. But why would there be a particularly large tree alone in a fairly normal but ancient hedge? Well, a few hundred years ago, timber ships of that time required vast amounts of timber, and the oak is especially important, as it's both strong and has many natural bends and odd shapes, just what's needed in ships or early house construction. Large timbers were always in great demand. The hedge was a means of keeping animals enclosed, but any oaks found growing there would be left to grow naturally. They knew it would be 100 years or so before it was of any use, but they planned for the future. Obviously they had no idea that steel, aluminium and glass fibre would take over, so luckily for us we can now enjoy having such mature oaks to enrich our countryside. And here we have a telegraph pole. The big cable on the top is 3 phases of 230 volts and a neutral that feed the houses, and the smaller wire underneath is the telephone cable. Might even be fibre optic around here. And so is it interesting? Well, if you want electricity or broadband, I suppose yes, it is interesting. Well, we're following a typical country lane around here. Only room for one vehicle, with the odd wider place so that hopefully people can spot, pass if necessary. If you're from America, it probably frightens the life out of you. But it's quite normal for us here. And if you ever get down to Devon and Cornwall, you'll find they're a lot worse. Well, earlier we looked at this 11,000 volt 3-phase cable. This is where this particular one comes to. And from this pole, you'll see that it enters a cable that runs under the ground. And there's a very good reason for that, just round the corner. Now, do you remember that oil pipeline marker we just saw a while ago? Well, the oil pipeline comes into this compound, and because of all the valve gear and it's quite sensitive stuff, that's why the electric actually runs underground, because the last thing you want is a broken cable flapping about. Now, this compound is on quite a high bit of ground, and what it does, it allows an instrument called a pig to be launched inside the oil pipelines. Not a real pig, of course. This is an instrument that can flow along with the oil, and it can do all sorts of measuring for corrosion, wall thickness, all sorts of things like that to make sure it's safe. These pigs can also be used to isolate different fluids if there's a slightly different mix being sent along the pipeline. So within this compound there's all sorts of control valves, monitoring equipment, and of course the pig launchers. And just a little bit further along, the power comes back up the pole to go overhead again, in 2-phase this time to feed a farm. Obviously they don't need the whole 3-phase. And there's also a transformer here to supply 415 volts to the pipeline compound that we just saw. And if we just look back behind the oil compound, you can see 2 very happy looking donkeys. And this is Hill Farm Airstrip. You can just about make out the windsock. It's just a grass runway, very small. I can't really have a closer look today because there's nobody about, and I don't think they'd appreciate me wandering about. Right, so we're being lucky with the weather so far. March winds is about, so hopefully the video's okay. And of course we're coming into April, so you can expect some April showers, I suppose. Although it looks alright today. So we carry on along this lovely trip, which leads us past the farm. And of course we can't be in the countryside without mentioning the importance of farming. Although fields all look natural, they're not. They're an industrial process really, and the farmers contribute so much to producing our food and everything that we need day to day. It's very important to support them. They're going through a very bad time at the moment with one thing and another, but it's really nice to see a little bit of ploughing going on. As you're walking about, you often see bits of farm machinery. They look like they're abandoned, and of course they're not, just waiting the right season to be used again. Often piles of firewood, getting ready for the winter. I'm not quite sure what this is, but I'm sure it's got its use, and it will get used again at some point. Right, we're on another path track. This one doesn't seem to have had a lot of use, but if you look on a map, you'll find it lines up with other small roads in the village, and it goes directly to the church. So I wonder how many hundreds of years farmers and people who live out here have walked on a Sunday to the church along this path that we are following in their footsteps, literally. Of course, you know, it may seem all idyllic and that we're miles from anywhere here, but like most places in Britain now, you'll find it's housing developments not far away, and I wonder how long it will be before the entire country is either concrete or solar panels. And we eventually come to this delightful little bridge over a tributary of the River Hamble, just a small stream. It's very scenic, very pretty. And we'll head up to the hedge line there, where there's a little stile and we can cross over onto the road. You'll often find a stile to cross over. These allow people to climb over quite easily and dogs to go through, but they're not large enough for farm animals. And once we're into the lane, you'll see in the distance the lane continues towards the church, and this is on a straight line from the path we've been walking along. Here's a delightful little finger post, a very early form of road sign. This one's been recently repainted and is looking very good. And because it's quite high up, luckily it's well away from any vandalism. Okay, we're just entering a little village called Durley. Must be lovely to live around here. Some lovely little cottages. Quiet lanes, as you see. Just at the lowest point in the village is a sewage pumping station. Not the most glamorous of locations, but essential nonetheless. Due to various reasons such as more houses being built, water runoff from roads and fields, and poor maintenance, occasionally these pumping stations can be overwhelmed, resulting in raw sewage being discharged into the watercourse. This is obviously unacceptable and negatively affects the countryside. There's a very good reason that I've come along this little lane. It's definitely to do with the countryside, well, with farming, farmers. Anyway, it's a little pub called the Farmer's Home. So in my mind, yeah, that's okay. It's very thirsty work, all this walking, and I think it'd be rude not to call in and try and support local businesses where we can. Do you remember that list of names earlier? Got one more to add, Mr. Brewer. Thank you for watching and hope to see you again soon.